of March.
There we go. Good morning, everyone, for another installment of the Land Use and Ethics Subcommittee. It is indeed the Ides of March. It is the morning of March 15th, and we're approaching crossover. And today we have possibly our last bill before crossover that we're going to take up. No promises on that, but for right now, this looks like maybe our last meeting before crossover. And the bill we're going to be discussing today before we head to the floor is House Bill 1265. This bill came in, it's about tracking of solar permits, and it came in pretty ambitiously, I would say, and really hammered this issue in a variety of different ways. So as it came in, it would have required by August 1 of next year for each county and municipality to implement an app called Solar App Plus, which was developed by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. And it essentially just expedites and simplifies the process of tracking and approving residential solar permits. There were a number of other different provisions in the bill. For example, about inspections and about what I think MACO and MML were referring to as, I kind of like this analogy, as a shot clock, where initially in the bill there was a provision that basically said if a county or municipality didn't finish the permitting process or didn't expedite it in a fast enough way, then it would just be automatically approved. But the bill as it stands before you this morning is heavily amended, and we have taken out most of the sections. And really what the bill does now is it requires municipalities and counties to essentially, and you can see it up here, what we're calling this, of essentially adopting what we're calling solar permitting software. There was a concern about using the name of the app in the bill. So instead, we're calling this solar permitting software, and you can see the definition here. So basically, you would be in compliance either if you use the most recent version of a web-based platform that's developed by this National Renewable Energy Laboratory that I just mentioned, but you're also in compliance if you adopt some other automated software that functions to support the tracking and approval of residential building permits. So we're kind of doing two things with this amendment. Number one, we just thought it was going to be a little bit weird to name a specific app in the bill. But number two, we wanted this to be a little bit broader. My understanding is that there are a couple of other apps and services that support the same thing. And we wanted to give the counties and the municipalities a little bit more flexibility to sort of choose the one that's right for them. The power of these apps, though, is that basically, an inspector can come to your house, pull up the app, and it can all be integrated and sort of you can automatically go through a permitting process rather than having to submit a form online or some sort of paper form, and then it's like sitting in someone's file folder for weeks. And this has basically been the whole bill is born out of a concern that in some counties and municipalities, not all, but in some, this process can take an inordinate amount of time. Delegate Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I'm appreciative of the fact that you make sure that it's broad enough so we're not just putting the name of a particular company in the bill itself. I'm just wondering, is it broad enough so that if there are particular solar companies that begin to expand their services via the means of an app, will they be able to then jump in as well, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think the answer is absolutely. So if you guys can scroll back up a little bit on the bill and go back to that Roman numeral 2. No, you're good. Yeah, you're on the same. Yeah, right there. You can see this Roman numeral 2 language, which is included in the solar permitting software definition. I feel like this is pretty broad. Automated software that functions to support the tracking and approval of residential building permits. Like that seems pretty broad. And so I do feel like, we don't want to unduly put our thumb on the scale here. And if there's going to be competition in this space, we want there to be competition. And if there are new apps that develop, we want those to be able to flourish. And we certainly don't want to codify the
Right.
status quo here in 2024, So
Okay.
yeah,
My concerns are addressed. Thank you.
appreciate it. Delegate Davis.
Thank you, and I apologize for checking in late. Is this enabling legislation?
It's not. It's not enabling legislation. Counties are already enabled to do this. In fact, some counties and municipalities have already adopted this. This actually would be a mandate on counties and on municipalities. My understanding that, MML and MACO both came in opposed. My understanding is that they worked with the sponsor and the stakeholders on these amendments. MML is now neutral on the bill, but I believe that MACO still has concerns. I know that Dom has joined us. He's got his camera on. He's ready to roll. I would love to hear from Dom. Delegate Davis, I don't mean to cut you off. Did you have anything else?
Well, yeah, I don't really understand. So it mandates them to use electronic software.
Correct. To track residential solar permits.
Okay.
Okay. Dom, take it away.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chair, for having me. One quick clarifying thing at the top. So MACO is not currently opposed to this bill. We are support with amendments. We really want to reach our solar goals. We want to be good stakeholders in that. I want to give a huge shout out. I see some of the advocates are on the call as well, and to Delegate Frazier Hidalgo, because they've been working really closely with us. I think that the bulk of our concern, and it's up on your screen right now, in 5 number 2 is the word automated and what that word automated actually means. And Delegate Davis, you were kind of starting to get around that. Is this enabling? Is it a mandate, et cetera? So, I mean, to be frank, it's 2024. Jurisdictions are already trying to transition to more online and get away from paper. That transition's already in progress. Solar App and the federal funds to help transition to that are a great tool. But there is some concern that, that word automated sets this up to kind of be a single source procurement where we can only use Solar App. MACO's position is, listen, if you submit your application to the county and you want to get an update on where that is and make sure that the process is going fluently and clearly, we agree with that. But if it's going to set up where we would only have to adopt Solar App and, the 24 different kind of IT systems and how that would integrate, that causes us a lot of concern. I mean, frankly, our concern is only down to that single word.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thanks, Dom. And we'll probably kick it back over to you in a minute. One thing you did mention that I had forgotten to mention is, first of all, I just want to clarify that what we're talking about here about adopting the app is the only thing remaining in the bill. So we're not like hiding any other amendments. Like, that's the bill. So all the inspection stuff is out. And that's what I think some of those concerns, I know that MACO especially had a really, really big concern with the shot clock thing, which I get, right? I mean, we'd want these things to be safe. And the idea that just because a county or municipality was a little delayed in approving something, it was automatically went into place, I think raised consternation, not only with MACO, but I think a number of us, including some people that came and talked to me. So that's all the bill does. But there is one other provision which basically sunsets the requirements in the bill if funding is not available for this. So this is not an unfunded mandate to the counties and municipalities, because there exists a huge pot of federal monies to adopt this app right now. But if that money ever became unavailable, or it was tied to something else, or if state funding wasn't there, then this requirement goes away. And if I could, Delegate Long and Delegate Davis, I'd love to kick it over to Phil, our other advocate, if that's okay, just to provide a little bit more clarity, because he may end up addressing any questions you have, but then I'm happy to kick it back over to you. Is that okay? Okay, Phil, take it away.
Yeah, and everything you just said is correct. I did just want to slightly correct and reiterate what Dom said. We've had many conversations with MACO and MML that I think have been extremely productive, that have led us to this point, which I think strikes a great portion of the bill other than this requirement for solar permitting software. I did just want to point that the intention of this bill isn't to simply only mandate Solar App. It's why you'll see in this definition here, it also defines solar permitting software as automated software that functions to support the tracking approval of these permits. In other states that have done it, California has a similar mandate. About 13% of the jurisdictions there actually decided to do that and use an app separate from Solar App. We think that Solar App is an obvious solution, and as you said, there is federal funding for that, but there's nothing that stops a jurisdiction under the way that this law is currently written from implementing automated software that isn't Solar App. Where I'm aware of at least 4 other for-profit platforms that are available. Jurisdictions would also be able to, through their own IT procurements, automate their current systems. So the intention of this bill is definitely not to simply mandate Solar App.
Appreciate that. Delegate Davis.
If we're not simply mandating Solar App, we don't need paragraph 1.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, Delegate Davis. If you think that we think that solar app is subsumed into the first section there.
Absolutely. I agree with Delegate Long that it implies the most recent version of a web-based platform. We don't need it if we have paragraph 2.
Okay, yeah, Phil, do you want to address that?
Yeah, and I totally understand. The reason why that's written in is because if back to the bottom of the bill, that includes this section that allows MEA to suspend the requirements of the bill if the federal funding no longer exists. So currently the $4.48 million in federal funding only exists for solar app. So what this bill says is if you're a county or municipality that does solar permitting, we have federal funding through MEA available for you to utilize this free to use nationally supported software. However, if you would like to use your own software and pay for that out of your own pocket, you are totally allowed to. However, if we get in a situation in which the federal funding no longer is available for that free software and the counties and municipalities are no longer able to utilize a free a free software, then we will, because in that case, essentially, if the funding ran out, this bill would require them to use a paid version, which isn't the intent. And so if that federal funding runs out, then they would be able to suspend the requirements of the bill altogether.
In other words, Delegate Davis, we would normally what we would probably do is just define it as automated. But since we have that sunset provision in there, and since the sunset provision is specifically tied to the federal funding for that app, we had to basically call it out in a little bit more specificity here in 5.1 so that we could refer back to that section. So in the last section of the bill, it says the administration shall delay the initial implementation or suspend the requirements of subsection C of this section if there are insufficient state or federal funds available to the administration to provide financial support to a county or municipality implementing solar permitting software as defined in subsection A5.1 of this section. So because the funding is tied to that, we tied the sunset provision to that available funding, and that's why we had to spell out the separate section. Does that make sense?
Well, not quite.
Okay.
Could you go back to 5.1?
Yes.
I think we can do that without the exact wording. Yeah, I think we could work on that wording and do the same thing without the most recent version of the platform. And there was one other question. My notes say that Ann Healy asked a question, Delegate Healy asked a question, and it's not free, that it actually costs. And the cost is given to whom?
Yeah, Phil, you want to address the cost issue?
Yeah, so my understanding is that it's free for the county and municipality to implement. There is the way that solar app is funded is through when the solar installer works with the platform to submit a permit, the solar installer pays a fee.
What's the fee?
I believe the fee is $20. I don't have it directly in front of me, but the solar industry was in favor of this bill. Yeah,
I'm really uncomfortable with pointing to a for-profit agency. I'm just going to tell you that.
Okay, I hear you, Delegate. So your discomfort is not so much in the mandate itself, but in the fact that it seems like we're still identifying a specific for-profit company here. Okay, I appreciate that.
Oh.
The bells are ringing, so we'll just we're not going to vote right now. We don't have time to vote. It looks like maybe we're going to have some further amendment discussions based on the conversation we've had. But if anyone has any comments before we walk to the floor, knowing that we're not going to vote and we can come back to it, happy to take those now. Delegate Long.
Yeah, I was just going to say we could just hold the bill. That's all. I concur.
No worries. Yeah, we're not going to make you guys vote in between bells ringing. Don't worry. Okay, great. Well, we'll announce another meeting. Hopefully, it will be today. If not, it'll be tomorrow. If we take this back up, and we'll talk through amendments in the meantime. Appreciate y'all. See you.